Right, my name is Andre Wright. I am a senior kinesiology major. My name is Evan Morcell. I'm a senior, and my major is kinesiology.
Kevin Laguerre, I'm a civil engineering major.
My name is Olivia Bethay. I'm class of 2016, and I'm a double major in government politics and French language and literature.
My name is Oplayemi Oweya. A lot of people call me Ope, but I'm better known as O-Slice. I'm a sophomore at the University of Maryland.
My mellow latte was kicking flavors. The Ari Bossy said, yo, Latifah, we can do this. So I paused and took a thought, then...
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do like hip-hop.
Okay. Can you elaborate?
I don't necessarily like a lot of the new stuff that's out. I don't always consider that to be hip-hop. But, like a lot of older rappers or like politically conscious rappers, people like Mos Def, Common, you know, Tupac, people like that, like I can appreciate and I enjoy listening to. I feel as if it's okay.
Okay, can you elaborate?
I wouldn't say that I regularly listen to hip-hop as far as on a weekly basis or a daily basis. I like the byproducts of it being maybe R&B or jazz, neo-soul, things of that nature. But hip-hop as far as rap goes, I'm not a big fan of rap just because of the way I was brought up and raised. I'm a country boy.
Sicker than your average, Papa twist cabbage off instinct. Niggas don't think shit stink, pink gators.
I can't say that I do. Honestly, I do feel like it gives off a negative impression, and it's also a negative example, especially because a lot of the listeners are, you know, youth. It's a lot of kids listening to this, so it's like they grow up thinking that this is cool. Like they grow up, you know, trying to, you know, mess with women, do certain things like that they'll talk about in these hip hop songs that they're probably not even, that the actual rapper or, you know, artist probably isn't even doing, but they'll talk about it, and like other people like try to do it and like think that that's what, you know, that's what's cool, that's what's socially acceptable, but I mean, it's not really getting them anywhere. And then you have a lot of people, like for example, like I feel like most of the artists are African American, so a lot of the consumers are not African American. So when they hear stuff like that, a lot of times they get a false idea of how a lot of African American people are, or what they, you know, how they act, black culture in general. And I feel like it gives a false portrayal, I guess, impression of how, you know, black people actually act.
It's the same has been since the early 2000s. The same has been since the early 2000s, misogynistic. It can be degrading to women. Hip-hop today has become themed mainly on money, drugs, and how much you can spend. There's really no message in music nowadays. The images, they're how you take them. They can be negatively effective to today's youth, but you can make your own choices, so I don't take them as negatively.
I see two sides to hip-hop. There are those who have, you know, the derogatory terms, those who talk negatively upon women. There's a lot of utilization of the B word, as we know. Curse words. Being that I am a Christian man, I try to keep everything that I can, you know, as holistic as possible. But there are also artists like Common, people of that nature who have uplifting music, who can speak the nation. So I think it's all about the perspective and the purpose of what the artists themselves are trying to portray. But to answer your question, I do feel as if hip-hop is often referenced with a negative connotation, but overall it's not a negative genre.
Let it bump though.
I think it greatly influences black culture. As far as the whole women thing, I feel like it definitely attributes to the way that men look at women, and like men actually like feel about women. They don't realize that half the time these artists still have like women in their lives that they do take care of and they do treat with respect, but they just listen to the lyrics and they take that and they run with it and try to live their lives according to that, not knowing that half the time that's just an act. So I feel like it's definitely integrated, but sometimes not in the best ways. And as far as black culture, I feel like it's reflective of black culture. So it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg. Right. So it's like black culture influences hip-hop, and then hip-hop influences black culture, so it's interchangeable.
I think hip-hop definitely plays a part in black culture because it's very popular in black culture, and it provides an unfortunate and a very limited definition of success. So in hip-hop, you definitely see a lot of like designer brands, you definitely see a lot of materialism, and I feel like I said, like that defines success for so much of the black community, and it's unfortunate. It's damaging because there's broader interpretations of success that can be defined more academically and more intellectually than the materialism which constrains the black community that I most often see. I also, to answer the second question you asked, I definitely think it also limits the way blacks are perceived by people outside of their culture. I mean, stereotypes are obviously very real. They're a very real part of our lives, and I definitely feel that hip-hop is is always attached to black culture. And I'm not trying to antagonize hip-hop, but it does, because I don't think it's the totality of black culture, but it definitely presents materialism and a slang, materialism versus like something more moral, or slang versus more intellectual conversation, fighting versus being in school or something like that. It almost presents the opposite of what mainstream society considers acceptable, and that becomes the stereotype of the black community.
Okay. So for the first half of your question, I would say that outside of the black race, I believe that it has a negative image. It has a negative impact. People see us as being, ignorant, or they feel as if that we don't have intelligence, we have no couth. Within the race, I feel like it's more of a personal thing. For example, the utilization of the N-word is more so as a term of, not endearment, but it's understood amongst blacks that it's not meant to offend. But from looking outside in, of course, it would appear as if we're insulting one another or making ourselves look stupid.
Work it, make it, do it, makes us harder, better, faster, stronger.
Trey?
Unfortunately, yes. I feel like a song in which somebody may be talking about something that's real or more prevalent, maybe like let's say Mos Def is rapping about, how black people aren't necessarily being treated right, or let's say somebody makes a song about, black women, and it's actually a respectful song and stuff like that. You won't hear it played on the radio.
Right.
Like, that's generally what you would, classify as underground music. And, if you heard it, it would be like, oh, man, this is actually a really good song. But most people aren't being exposed to that. They're being exposed to negative images. So maybe if, people were being exposed to the positive music more, then it could have more of an impact. But that's not what is most prevalent and, what's most popular.
I'd have to say yes, just because I'm trying to think of positive images in hip-hop. And I don't want to say that there aren't any, but none are coming to my head immediately. Not to say that they're all negative, but I feel like just because it's not negative doesn't mean it's positive either. There's a lot of stuff that's probably neutral, like hanging out in the front step. It's neutral, but it's not necessarily a positive image. Dancing in the club, like that, it's not positive image, but it's not a negative image. So,
unfortunately, I do, just because of social norms and things of that nature. I'm trying to think of a positive leader in hip hop. it's just mainstream artists often have negative connotations. But there are positive artists. There's so many positive artists. Hip hop is really, it's poetry on music, you know? And I mean, poetry is one of the greatest ways to voice how you're feeling and also to talk about the times of a specific era. So I personally feel as if hip hop is more positive, in my opinion, but when I'm trying to separate the bias of my own opinion, I say it's not.
Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now my whole team fucking here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. Started from the bottom, now the whole team here. Nigga, started from the bottom, now we're here.
I definitely feel like a lot of the older generation doesn't really mess with hip hop, and they feel like it is a negative thing. I know my mom, for example, until she saw like what I was actually doing with my music, like having positive influences and trying to like do something positive with my music, like whenever she heard me rap, she'd be like, I don't want to hear that nonsense. Like, don't even do that. And I mean, and at first I definitely was. I wouldn't say I was negative, but I would say my music wasn't going in a direction that would be seen as positive. Not necessarily negative, but it wasn't uplifting anybody. It was just like, you know, cussing all over the place. I don't cuss anymore in my music, but I used to cuss up a storm. And my mother didn't like that, and I could see why older people would see it as something negative. As far as it being the downfall of the black youth, I feel like once again, the people that they look up to, the values that they put out there, like don't love women, like women are objects, and dudes aren't anything, you know. What else the other saying for that is? And you know, trust nobody, stuff like that. It's just like the values that are put out by a lot of hip hop songs. I understand that they come from like places of experience and stuff like that, but a lot of these youth, a lot of the youth that listen to that don't have those experiences, but they listen to those lessons and attribute it to their lives, and it puts us in a place where we're not really progressing like we should be. I don't think it's hip hop's fault per se, because these people are talking about their lives, so it's valid when it comes from them. But for people to just listen to the music and automatically just say, that's what I'm going to do, and that's like, you should live your own life and figure out what values are important to you, not just adapt.
Well, I don't know, I can't speak for African American families. My parents aren't from here. But, yeah, my parents personally don't like it. I wasn't even allowed to listen to Soulja Boy. They thought he was a negative influence. When my dad first heard Superman, he thought it was inappropriate. He was like, it's not a dance cap you can't listen to ever again. But, yeah, parents nowadays, there are those very parents who do like rap music, and there are always exceptions. Like you have parents who like rap music and their kids will foster well, but in today's society, most parents hate rap music and the message it brings. Teenagers nowadays, yeah, like, even myself, like I like the beat, like the I don't necessarily like the lyrics, but it's just something you can really vibe to. But we don't realize it, but the themes really are affecting us. Even in PG especially, people nowadays think like, oh yeah, I sell drugs, I do this, I go hard, only because of the music you listen to. It's one of the factors, but the downfall of black youth is mainly attitude. It's not really necessarily the music we listen to, although we're influenced by our music, but we should be strong enough to not let our influence make us who we are.
Well, I think when you talk to the older generation, they have actually a very different understanding of hip-hop. So, what they consider hip-hop is probably closer to Run DMC. You know, it's not 2 Chainz.
Right.
And I think that they feel much more positively towards Run DMC and the music that they grew up with than they do towards the hip-hop that we experience most often today. And I don't think that they would attribute that early on hip-hop immediately to the shortcomings of modern black youth. Although I do believe that they analyzed it close enough. There's evidence of materialism, strong evidence of materialism in those early artists, just as there is now, and it's just as damaging. In fact, those early artists paved the way for the later artists, started those conversations.
Mike Wilmer.
Young nigga, move that dope. Young nigga, move that dope, baby, move that dope, baby.
I feel like it doesn't have a positive influence or positive impact. A lot of times I feel like a lot of times it'll make people who aren't African American feel as though they understand black culture more, which is false. And I feel like a lot of times, black people will know that it's, this isn't, what black culture is about, but they'll still listen to it. They'll still, rap it. They'll still, do things like that. They might not actually engage in certain activities that they might be talking about, but it's still something that people listen to. It's still getting into their subconscious. So it's like, I feel like, any type of negative song, negative lyrics, negative ideas, it's not going to reap any positive results.
I know that we have, what is it called? We have a cipher within the black community. And I think the cipher is a beautiful thing. People come together, artists on campus, local artists. Shout out to Double Up Cal. They just speak what's on their mind, issues that are on the campus. They make things relevant to people in a way that's different and it's intriguing. So I feel as if that's a very positive thing on campus. I also feel as if hip-hop on campus, you always see people with Dre beats, you see people who are bumping their latest tunes, and it kind of goes with their swag, it goes with their personality. I feel like it gives people a sense of independence. So I think that it has a positive influence on campus, and I don't think it's negative at all.
I think it's really interesting on its influence on the campus as a whole, because there's a lot of people who are not of the African American descent that do listen to hip hop and rap on this campus, and they play it at their parties and all that stuff. The influences, I can just tell the story. Like, I remember going to my first not black party, like my white party, in college, and they were chilling. They were playing dubstep and not our music. And they were dancing around and jumping and having fun. Then the whole Miley Cyrus twerking thing came out, and then I haven't gone to another white party. And then I go to a white party. It was my friend's birthday, and we're in the party, and I'm looking around, and it's like everybody's trying to twerk. They weren't doing it right, but it was just so interesting seeing how one white person did it, and she made it she what's it called? She what's the word for it? She sensationalized it, and then they feel so I feel like it's not just black people who take these things and run with it. It's also white people, especially white people on this campus. They love it. I got white people that I work with that work in my other job, and they talk about putting together playlists for partying. They're Don't Stop and all that, songs like that. I just think it's interesting how it influences their lives. I feel like the difference is it's not attributed to them. The thing about hip hop, when we listen to it, it's we listen to rap, and the themes that occur is a lot of people's lives, and a lot of people can relate to that. And outside, it's seeing those stereotypes that are attributed to the artists are the stereotypes attributed to the people that listen to the music. But when people that are not of the race or not of the same background, when they listen to the music, it's just music to them, and they can go out and do things without the hip hop influencing any part of that, their lives. But with us, it's integrated.
Question. I would have to say, in general, my favorite, it's actually a group, Tribe Called Quest. They are hands down my favorite rap group. I mean, the beats that they would, put down, what they would talk about, the flow, it was good music, but it had substance, and that's what I appreciate about rap.
I'd have to go with, I'd say Nas. I feel like Nas keeps it real. He's a very honest rapper. And he's not so much for numbers or selling. It's more so what comes from him.
J. Cole is good. Drake is good. Chance is on the come up. A lot of people don't listen to him, but Tech Nine is pretty good too. Who else do I listen to? everybody talking about Kendrick. Kendrick's decent. All those people listen to, I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite.
Does Lauryn Hill count?
Favorite rap artist, even though it's a little bit like waning right now, is Big Sean. I really love how much fun he has with his music, and he's a really positive influence because, you know, a lot of his music, people would say he's not a positive influence, but because I know his story, I know he's a positive influence. Like, he was a kid, like, he had no connections to the music business. He worked for it, and he, like, jumped on opportunity that he found. So I really appreciate his story. He does have positive music. People just don't look for it or, like, want to hear it. And then, aside from Big Sean, I love Kendrick. I love Chance the Rapper. I love J. Cole. Kanye's cool. He's losing it, but he's cool. Don't like Jay-Z. Yeah, I like Chance the Rapper.
Yo, my men and my women, don't forget about the dean. This is not the most the king. Yo, it's about a thing. Feel real good, wave your